to imagine all life as you know it stopping instantaneously and every molecule in your body exploding at the speed of light.
Total protonic reversal.
Protonic reversal.
Protonic reversal with your host, Conan Neutron. Broadcasting from a secret underground lair in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
A gigantic middle finger to everything that is rock about music, rock and roll, and corporate power.
The thing is, though, if you don't laugh, you're going to go on a killing spree with sharpened nails.
Confidence of a hero or a fool. I wasn't exactly certain which.
Could not be more professional.
It means something. It means something. You know, that's my take on it. What's yours?
Protonic reversal.
That's like a science thing, right?
Indeed it is. It's a science thing. It's a science place. It's a scientific fact. We're all up in your face. It is time once again for the one, the only Protonic reversal. Welcome to it. Tonight's special episode, the return of the Spud. Jerry Casale. Very excited to talk to him about his new EP, new videos, bringing back Jihad Jerry, but with new 2022 swagger. All those things. Jerry Casale, of course, friend of the show, one of my favorite guests ever. And we're going to go right to it after I do this really obnoxious spiel that I do in the show. Welcome to Conan Neutron's Protonic Reversal. I'm your host, Conan Neutron. I'm a rock and roll lifer who has toured and recorded for over 22 years, most known for the band Conan Neutron, The Secret Friends. Music is a huge part of my life, and I use the format of this very long-running podcast to talk about music with musicians whose work I enjoy and respect. Folks that may or may not be household names, but do something very special. This is episode 313. If this is your first time listening to the show, all the archives are available at protonicreversal.com and are always free. No ads, no sponsors, no kidding. And if you'd like to support the show and get episodes sooner, you can give $1 a month to patreon.com/protonicreversal. And if you like the show or even just a single episode, please feel free to share it along, like, subscribe, or post a review. All that helps people find the show. And it's a darn nice thing to do. So there you go. That wasn't too bad, was it? So yeah, I mean, the cliche when you do a show like this is to say that, you know, my next guest needs no introduction. I think that was the David Letterman deal. I am going to do it anyway. Because this is Jerry freaking Casale, man. One of my favorite artists, musicians, a legendary member of Devo. And here he is. Welcome back, sir. How you doing?
Hello.
You've been a very busy man.
Yeah, as busy as I'm allowed to be. That's what I like.
I guess let's start off by say congratulations for becoming a father, too. Which is...
Yeah, it was shocking.
And congratulations on the new release as well,
thank you.
Which I think is fantastic. This is real cool. I think fans of Devo would absolutely appreciate it. Like they're going to be able to find some value out of it. I appreciated the easy listening mixes and things along those lines, all the extras and things like that. There's a lot of fun stuff for it. You got it in for Record Store Day. How did this release come to pass? Was this like an overall conceived thing, or did it end up being something where it kind of shot from the hip a little bit?
Well, it's really a tip of the iceberg. I mean, I still am the same person, you know, creatively, conceptually, that started Devo, right? Devo was experimental. Devo was collaboration. Devo was, somewhat polarizing in the beginning and multimedia. And I've never quit thinking like that. Never quit being excited to do that. In other words, excited about ideas, excited about creating for its own sake. I mean, you know that Devo didn't start where people cynically sat around and go, "This will make a lot of money."
Oh yeah. Real recipe for success, totally.
So now I'm a senior citizen, and and I realized that in the real world, only Dua Lipa counts and things like that. But I still feel a need to do what I can do. And I'd do a lot more of it if you could corral people and work with them. But they all have schedules. They all have, things that they have to do to pay the bills and be successful. So I finally got to collaborate again with Josh Freese and with Steve Bartek.
Right.
And you're right. And it was exciting and fun because they have the same kind of youthful, kind of innocent approach to creating that I still do. And so Invisible Man is one of many, many songs. There's a lot more coming,
which is fantastic.
Yeah,
because there's no reason why should you stop. There's no.
Oh, yeah.
And again, I think it's sad to a lot of Devo fans, myself included, that that there isn't more material because.
Yeah,
of course, we did the anniversary show for Something for Everybody. I love that record. I think it stands amongst your best. But I get it. Mark's very busy scoring stuff, and everyone has obligation, lives, et cetera, et cetera. It's true of any band, whether they're big or small. You have to deal with that.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't. That's what he's interested in, is scoring, and doesn't have the same Devo spirit.
Right. And it's there's nothing wrong with that at all. Of course, it's fantastic, and we celebrate them for it. But it's just nice to hear someone from your world and coming from your world view and where you have been, still creating and obviously having a blast doing it. It's like this is vital stuff, right? It's not like, oh, here's a contractual obligation record that I'm just gonna
exactly
right.
No, right. No, I'm in this one, I'm marching in Teletubby land in my pajamas.
Right, exactly. So. The video is incredible. It's really good. And I like that there's sort of a thematic link with it as well.
And that was all intentional too. Just as with Devo, there's a meta narrative behind it all. And I work with Davey Force because I think he's a genius.
Really cool stuff.
Oh yeah, he's good. He's the best animator and mad professor of AI programs that I've ever met. He's great.
Well, and it's fascinating too because there's something about it that it doesn't just feel like a cartoon. It's a little unnatural somehow.
Yeah.
And I think it's not the same at all, but I think of when rotoscoping first came in.
Right? Yeah, that's a good example. Yeah, because
there's that Bakshi Hobbit rings, right? Which sort of wow, this kind of looks like a cartoon and kind of not. When the orcs and stuff show up, it's whoa, what is that? Right. It's crazy looking.
Right.
And I like the fact that the videos take the more unnatural elements of the animation and kind of use that as part of the narrative structure and as part of the overall presentation. It's a very Devo thing.
Yeah, we're mutating and morphing from live action to this kind of Marvel world that's immortal and unreal. Yeah.
So how's it feel to have and knowing, we talked in other episodes about, you doing video work for other bands, for the Cars and things like that. But to have the technology kind of catch up with the mindset and the I know. I've always been, obviously, as all of Devo was, excited with the latest tools and the latest toys, and we were always experimenting and using that as soon as we were able to, financially use some of those techniques. I mean, my God, we were doing blue screen and green screen way before anybody, and so this is what used to be so hard and so crude is all in the box and all simple now. You got to remember that when we first landed on the moon, they didn't have as much technology to land on the moon as we have in an iPhone. It's absolutely true. When what was it, Apollo? Which Apollo mission was it where they had to save them? It's they were doing that with far less computing power than the crappiest cell phone.
Exactly. And now it's taken them 50 years to get back to the moon, which they're having trouble doing. So that is de-evolution.
Yeah, well, don't worry, because we use these things to make each other feel bad and to spread lies and misinformation. So that's good. I think well, and thinking back to, I don't want to talk about things that we've talked about too much before, but I think was it the Girl You Want video that like just the contrast was all just like, oh my God, what is wrong with TV? Like, what's what is this?
We took something that's a mistake in post-production where somebody forgets to flip a switch and everything's out of phase. And
Right.
I had seen that mistake, as many people did that worked a lot in video studios, and thought, you know what? Let's shoot everything with that in mind, so we know what's going to happen to it when we flip the switch.
Yeah.
So the production design was done on purpose, knowing that we were going to mess up the color.
which is great to like spend so much time and effort creating something perfect and like, oh yeah, now let's screw it up.
Yeah, it was fun. Right.
Well, and then also that video's got the, Devo's getting very much like the Beatles treatment on Ed Sullivan as well, which is also like hilarious, and especially just in retrospect. But then also, there was the DVD that had like all the videos collected.
Right.
When you take it as the aggregate total of the art, it really fits in nicely with like the vision for the rest of them, because you guys are always changing, evolving, so to speak, and trying different stuff. And it seems like it was as much to challenge yourself as the audience and everyone else to use the technology.
Well, it was to keep us excited about creating. We didn't want to just keep repeating ourselves. Even though we talked about that in Jocko Homo, we must repeat.
Exactly, which makes it such an awesome song, because it gets that kind of the repetition to the point of absurdity, and then it goes back to being genius, and then it goes back to being absurd. Then it gets annoying, then it goes back to being genius, which is, I'm a huge fan of things like that. But these new videos, to me, it feels like it has that same sense of adventure and that same sense of just like, oh, what can we do to screw this up and like make this interesting or weird.
Yeah.
And now that everybody, like, it's almost expected, like the idea of like, again, back to MTV, the idea of putting out a record and not doing a video is like insane, because that's how people interact with things.
Right. And the Invisible Man is a dickhead, by the way.
Exactly. Not a nice guy.
No.
Well, and then
he never is.
Right. And then I think of that along with I'm going to pay you back too, where it's largely addressing like the dickhead in the room, which it's do you feel like there's still grievances unsettled, or are these allegorical at this point?
What I do is I think everybody, especially in the entertainment business, has experienced betrayal, gaslighting, shameless lying, screw jobs, and you have to like abstract that and take it and use it as creative fuel. Otherwise, you'll go mad, or you'll end up being homicidal and go to jail.
Mad or worse. Exactly.
Right, or die. Or the old joke, bungee then death.
I was just talking to a friend earlier, and he was talking about he's a writer. He's talking about writing a short story where a guy's so down that he gets a gun to kill himself, but he buys it. The gun is too cheap and it jams when he tries to do it.
Yeah.
Which some people might not find that funny. I found that deeply hilarious. I was like, that's amazing.
Well, you can always try again.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So how do you feel about, because all right, so the EP, there's a record store day release, which is awesome, limited edition, artfully presented for the fans, for people that like a physical representation of the media. How do you feel about the place of physical media in today's day and age?
Well, I like it because it's a fetish. I like it because it is clearly an anomaly, in fetishistic retro for a crowd that grew up without it.
Yeah. The kids are buying it. If anybody buys anything, it's usually like, it's either
Right. And
old
you get a
timers with nice hi-fis or kids that are
right. You get a 12-inch piece of vinyl, and it's like, look at this. You know, it's like an artifact. Oh my God, look at this. It's an art piece because you remember 12-inch vinyl records. It was a big deal. You saved up. You made a big choice to buy it. It had amazing artwork at a scale that mattered. It had lyrics. It had inner sleeves. You'd read things and buy things, and you'd put the record on and lay down and smoke your shitty pot that wasn't very strong, and listen to the whole record beginning to end the way the artist had sequenced it, because there was some purpose to that. And there was a cohesive body of work where if you liked one of those songs, you were going to like at least half of that record. You know, you were going to like 4 or 5 songs. And that whole experience is gone. And that whole idea is gone.
Well, and I feel like people change, like they don't think about sequencing the same way, right? It's just like if you don't have them hooked by the first song, like they're on to the next thing immediately.
Well, yeah. I mean, everything's just, you know, you put it on shuffle, right? In Spotify. It's like, yeah, the artist's intent doesn't matter at all.
Do you feel like the algorithm is proof of de-evolution?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, taking everybody and putting them in a feedback loop, and you know, to quote somebody you never think I would quote, I will quote the Eagles, because they are letting the sound of their own wheels drive them crazy, and that's what you're watching. You're watching a world descend into madness, or at least America and Western culture is descending into madness. And everyone's pitted against everybody else, and the crazies are running the show.
It's also just weird to think about the idea of, well, I mean, you know, freedom of choice, right?
Yeah.
It's what you got.
Yeah, it is what they had, and they gave it up willingly. Freedom from choice is what you want.
Yeah, and I was disappointed whenever I'd hear people cover that song and they wouldn't catch that turnaround, which for me is
which was the whole idea.
The whole point of the song. Yeah, exactly.
That's like singing "Beautiful World," never going, but not for me.
Yeah, you're right.
You'd go, and me too. You know,
is that what Nicole sang in Devo 2.0? What was the change in that one? I'm trying to remember.
We made her say "and me too."
Yeah, which is so like deeply screwed up. Like,
yeah. Oh yeah, it was perverted.
Yeah, that was, and we talked about that in a previous show. We don't need to like get too into that, but the idea of there being, well, like franchising, right, and like having it be. When I think of whatever one thinks of the movies when J.J. Abrams brought back Star Trek with with different people, with younger actors that would be like, you know, the same age that they were when the original show was airing.
Right.
And so many people got so upset about it. It's like, well, they're icons, so he's doing something different with it. And yeah, sometimes that works, sometimes that doesn't. But that was a specifically freakishly weird of its time thing for that era of the 2000s too. That, like, I think only could have happened then. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
And when you have something like that that's geared for like, hey, it's Devo songs, but obviously it can't be, you know, like there's certain things that you can and can't do. I love the fact that some of the stuff that it was, here are the changes you need to make, and it's like worse somehow. Like, oh, that's
exactly. Well,
that's way worse.
Yeah, it was totally perverted. It's like we couldn't have thought of anything that good.
Yeah, exactly. If you were like a sleeper cell agent to get subversive material in the air, you know,
it was like the Uncontrollable Urge story where they go, you can't have an undefined urge. You got to define it. And we said, well, what would that be? They go, junk food. Oh yeah, programs on in the afternoon with middle schoolers. I get it. Yeah. Junk. Oh yeah. And so I changed it to before dinner, after lunch, I get a snack attack and I need to munch. And a 13-year-old girl's singing that.
Amazing. Yeah.
And they went, that's great.
Yeah, just guilelessly like, oh yeah, that's much better. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, and when you're in a situation like that, you know, you don't say anything, right? You're just like, all right, cool. Or
Yeah, I had learned after years and years and years of being the stupid shit that didn't suffer the fools gladly that,
yeah.
oh, wait a minute, this is totally Devo. You just like smile and go, that's really cool. Yeah.
And I think that it's notable too, and that was a crazy moment in history too, because I felt like the the nostalgia industrial complex was just kind of getting going in the modern world, and of course, Devo never really went away, but the idea of there being like, oh yeah, there's the only thing I can think of is remotely like it, Man or Astro Man, which when you're on with me for Movie Night Extravaganza, Brian Teasley of Man or Astro Man, aka Bird Stuff, they had a tour where it was called the Clone Tour, where they recruited friends of the band and other bands to be their clones, and they had like 4 different bands going out and playing Man or Astro Man shows in different areas at the same time.
That's nice.
Yeah, and
like what Andy Warhol did back in the 60s. He sent out guys that looked, enough like him with the same wigs,
right?
That they went to different places to do talks at universities at the same time.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's it's very deconstructive of the idea of like what is an appearance, what is performance,
Yes, it was what the English would call a piss take. I think it was Dada. I think it was Dada art.
Yeah, I suppose it just depends on how you look at it. Yeah. But I think that it's and then again, I'm trying my best to keep it unique, but then I think about the original conception of Something for Everybody, which was to focus group it.
Yeah.
And it feels like that was something where the people in the position of power kind of were along for it, and then also kind of need to be dragged along for it.
Well, they jumped ship. They got scared and they jumped ship. It was terrible, but predictable. They decided that the ad agency and Devo were making fun of the record label. And it's like, come on. Like, we are making fun of everything, and starting with ourselves here, folks.
Yeah. I mean, the idea of just like, people find the color blue more pleasant. So that's what we changed. We changed the hats to. Just that alone was like, oh my God, amazing, right?
Right. And we wanted, the fans to be in on that joke.
Yeah. And then, but then there's also, you had a bevy of songs. You had a lot of songs. So then you had like the song study, which is sort of like, oh, let the people have their say. What goes on the record?
Yeah. We did everything that ad agencies really do in marketing campaigns, except we were doing it fake.
Right. And performatively doing it in a way that's like, if you knew, it would be like, oh, well, this happens all the time. You just don't get to see it televised or streamed or whatever.
Right.
It's something where if there had been like, if the reality show element had come to pass, that would have been like maybe the crowning achievement of Devo, which is saying a lot.
Yeah. Well, it was one more disappointment and one more, whatever it's called, stick up the butt, in my craw. Because, it was a brilliant idea, and we worked with the mother agency in New York, and we had it all worked out, and the record company just threw a wrench into things and ruined it. It could have gone all the way, and it could have really worked.
I feel like, as with many things, pioneers that got scalped, it was just a little bit too early.
Yeah.
Like in this era of endless streaming entertainment, it's not even just the like, hey, it's on the internet. It's, which internet? Which internet is that on? I think it would have been perfect. I think it worked.
Yeah.
But yeah, not the first time that happened to you guys. So you're here to talk about the new stuff ostensibly. Tell me about like working on this new stuff. So you had the guy so first of all, Josh is obviously amazing. I actually like Oingo Boingo quite a bit. Steve's a very talented musician.
And Steve Bartek, brilliant.
Yeah,
brilliant.
Really, really fantastic guy. So how did that come to pass? Did you know Steve from
way in the past?
Way in the back, yeah.
But it was Jeff Winter, my executive producer, that was full of good ideas. That said, hey, why don't you talk to Steve Bartek with what you're telling me you'd like do on The Invisible Man. I think that's the way to go. And you brought him in on I'm Gonna Pay You Back, and he did the twisted psychedelic stuff for you.
Yeah.
And he's like he's like a genius scientist. He's got a huge home studio with so many guitars and pedals and effects and retro pieces of outboard equipment and amplifiers and preamplifiers and compressors. It's a toy store for any musician.
Right, toy store for sounds. Exactly. Yeah.
And so, he's a guy that'll go, you'll throw out the idea and you'll give some reference and go, oh, well, here, I can take this frequency analyzer and I could plug it in here and we can compress it there, and then we can do this. And you hear something really cool and you go, that's really good. And he goes, or we could do this. And so in about 5 minutes, you got too many options. You've heard like 6 things.
Right.
All right. And it's like, whoa, let's back up here, because you just heard a half of an album's worth of ideas.
Of ideas in one song. Yeah, exactly. It's almost like too much. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you don't want to get like analysis paralysis or something along those.
No.
It strikes me that idea seems not dissimilar to how you guys compose classic Devo material, though. Like,
that's exactly. That's what we were doing.
Check this out. What does this do? Okay, this does that.
Yeah. Yeah, Mark would find some outrageous sound, and then suddenly, by talking and laughing, we would make that the foundation of a whole song.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was talking to someone about like the lead guitar work in Devo, and just how Bob is like, it's amazing rock guitar. It's just that there's all these strange dying robot keyboard sounds and stuff around that I think people, if they're not looking for it or thinking about it, then they don't really acknowledge it. But I think it was one of the nice things about hearing some of the earlier things. Like I'm thinking of like the early version of Mongoloid, where that guitar is just so raunchy. It's just like
right,
and it's just like it sounds like the Stooges or something.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And it occurs to me that like Devo had the reputation, justifiable or not, as being like a synth band, and while that is true, there's a deep rock world.
Bob Mothersbaugh was a rocker.
Yeah,
for real. And he came from that background, and he had a band that was a out and out rock band,
right? Like,
and he worshipped Keith Richards.
Yeah, which is doubly great. And I'm not going to make you tell the story. You've told it so many times, the Satisfaction story, but. Right. I mean, we were talking about this in the van, and I think that's probably one of the best covers of all time, just because of the way you guys did it, because it sounds like you.
Yeah.
But in a way, that's just like also a statement about like the absolute awesomeness and complete preposterousness of rock and roll at the same time.
Yeah, and it didn't start as the song, which would made it the best, because we didn't say let's cover Satisfaction.
Yeah,
it's just we had a jam, piece by piece. And the further out it got, the more excited we got, until it became Satisfaction by accident.
Which is amazing. I mean, and that's something where, did you just know that you're like, this is something special?
Oh yeah, definitely. We wouldn't, we were, once you play something for hours and you don't want to stop. Yeah, the band is, bought into it. The train's left the station. And it was Bob Casale that stopped Mark and said, hey, sing the lyrics to Satisfaction. Right. So Mark started trying to do that. And that's when I put the change in it.
Yeah. Which is great. I mean, that makes the song, right? So,
right.
Do you like arranging? Like, is that something that you enjoy doing?
Yeah, arranging is probably the most important thing. It's kind of like marketing in Western society, right? Arranging is everything in a song to me.
Well, think about writing. Someone could be a great writer without an editor. Who cares?
Yeah.
It's like in Finnegan's Wake.
There you go.
Peace and love. But
yeah, you read it once.
It's enough, really. Yeah. So So with this new stuff, do you have an idea before you're right for the Invisible Man? I'm going to pay you back. Do you have the idea beforehand? Like, do you have like the songs kind of worked out, like where it's going to go? Like, how much is the process part of the story?
Well, actually, with those, those came about by collaborating and jamming with to begin with Josh,
who's a monster musician. I mean, that guy is just fantastic.
And he makes me laugh. I mean, the guy is clever and funny, and he actually stimulates ideas. And he will start with some just whacked drum beat, and I just started like reciting some lyrics extemporaneously over the top. And, and then he'd laugh and record it, and he'd say, well, why don't you do that here? Like he was doing to me what I always do to everybody else. Like, do that 3 times, and then we'll do this, right? And we start doing that, and we go back and forth. So that's how Invisible Man got written, and that's how I'm Going to Pay You Back got written. And so we were very collaborative from the start on that.
Did you have rough ideas for being a guy who has a sharp, keen sense for visual aesthetic? Do you have ideas?
Oh yeah, I always have that. Yeah. That's not a problem.
yeah. The ideas aren't the problem. It's the actual, time and effort to execute them, I'm sure.
No, I knew I wanted to wake up from the nightmare of I'm Going to Pay You Back, or supposedly wake up. And
might just be deeper in the dream, like Inception. Nope. Okay. Hold on. Looks like we got some leads. Yeah. Okay, you're back.
And so, I had to go outside and walk it off. That was my idea. And when I went outside, I knew I wanted it to look like I was in some Teletubby world.
Right. Just like those bright, just like.
Almost super flat art graphic.
Yeah. like coloring book, I call it,
topiary trees.
Right.
A 2 blue sky. And Mr. Sun, which I had to play myself.
Of course, yes.
He's a scary Mr. Sun, but
I mean, that's something too that I suppose you could call that show Devo in its own way, right? Because,
it was.
Because it's from a long tradition of like, ostensibly this is for kids, but people are definitely getting stoned and just watching this.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah.
But it's...
And what's interesting is when that idea started over a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
What the Teletubbies weren't around, and they came back while we were recording the song. There was the announcement. It was ridiculous. And we were already all down the road, planning the video when it happened.
Right in the zeitgeist at the right time for that to come back. Which now, and now. I don't want to get into Teletubbies discourse now, but the fact that there is Teletubbies discourse is an astounding representation of our times, if you ask me. But okay, so as someone who's so concerned with the visuals, how did you come to to Tomo? How did you?
Oh, Tomo, yeah, that was another connection that Jeff Winter made. Jeff said, "Hey, do you know Tomo's work?" I said, "I'm not sure." And then he showed me. I go, "Oh, I think I've seen a piece of that he did." And then he started showing me a lot more, and I went, "Oh my God, this is!" I love the kind of fetishistic, votive symmetry, almost pseudo-religious, and occult. And I thought, okay, I'm going all the way. I'm going into, Bilderberg territory and Masonic times here. I'm going to exploit all the conspiracy stuff and QAnon kind of junk. Like make sure that I'm always doing this. Like you see every major politician and all the royalty when they speak, they're always doing this while they're talking,
right?
Or they're doing this while they're talking, right? Always. And there's always a pyramid behind them. It's like it's
maybe an orb. Who knows?
Oh yeah, they all. It's like there's enough to make you believe there is an intent,
right?
Because it's so consistent. So I loaded that up. I said, "Here's Jihad Jerry, and here's what he's doing." and I gave him all the imagery that comes with that, and said, make it really occult, make it really dark and occult and religious, and he did. He did great job.
And there's a lot in his artwork, other artwork. There's like lots of different types of imagery that kind of contrasts, and that's what makes it sort of like just like devastated environmental stuff, and just like abhorrent violence and fire, but also like it does kind of look like you said, like religious artwork or something, where it's up on
so like apocalyptic, and it's the what do you want to call it, when you take animals and deify them.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Where like representations of deity.
and he does all that, right? So there's like pagan and satanic references and occult references.
This might open up like a whole kettle of fish, but I think it's worth mentioning, since I feel like conspiracy theories used to be like enjoyable, or at least interesting, even if one was not a believer.
Yeah, they were fun.
I think of Art Bell, and things like that. Like that was the thing you threw on when you were like driving late, and like, it's fun to listen to. And like somehow I never had on my bingo card that conspiracy theories would have the fun sucked out of them, and I'll just be like the worst represent. I feel like we're in the new metal of conspiracy theories right now, frankly.
I know what you mean. It's not funny anymore. We're choking on them.
Yeah,
and they become weaponized. I mean, it's toxic stuff, and people are ready to kill.
Yeah, and that's like the least fun thing ever. That's not awesome in any way. Do you feel like that's changed your worldview as far as like how you present things? And I bring that up because we talked a bit about Jihad Jerry, right? And like some people,
he didn't get the love.
He did not get the love. Some people did not get the joke, which
I don't know how they didn't. I really don't.
It just seemed like it was pretty on the face of it.
Because here you got a 60-year-old guy in a bad Sam the Sham and the Pharaoh's turban, saying mine is not a holy war, and he's a white guy.
Right.
What's not to get?
Yeah. Well, it's in the spirit of, challenging people too. Like, why do you feel like you're presented with this character, and why do you feel like, revulsed or angry at seeing this, person representing things this way that ostensibly has a worldview and,
I felt some sort of accomplishment because I had Muslims and jocks hating me equally.
I felt like it was a Tony Clifton move.
Yeah.
I hope I don't have to explain myself. Probably not with the people.
Tony, that was the best. Andy Kaufman, my God, he's the best.
And just like, making this purposeful heel character just to be like, here's the superstar Jihad Jerry. Like, let's go.
Tony Clifton was great confrontational stuff. Yeah, we were on an episode of Fridays where he came out as Tony Clifton.
I forgot about that. Yeah. Was that did you get to spend any time with him?
No, we didn't. But God, we thought he was great. But the show didn't think he was great. That was the end. That the producer, I forget what his name is, he came to blows with Tony because Tony went all the way. And Tony spent a couple hours in the dressing room. He rubs himself down with Limburger cheese and puts the suit on over it. So he totally stinks. I mean, from 6 feet away, it's horrid. Yeah, that's fantastic. It's, I got to hand it to him.
Talk about commitment to the bit, boy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I kind of felt like at the time, Andy Kaufman was sort of doing for comedy what Devo was doing for music to a certain degree.
Right? Absolutely, yeah.
Turning it on its head, making people like challenge their preconceived notions.
But by the time you went to Tony Clifton, what's great about that is that's where the comedian stops being funny.
Yeah.
That's what happened to Lenny Bruce. That's what happened to George Carlin and so many others. Is they're brilliant, and then they're getting so angry, and they're stuck in this industry that's so upside down and driving them nuts, and they go too far. And I love it, but that's when they lose everyone.
I mean, speaking of Carlin, there was that Carlin documentary that came out. It was like
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
And like, yeah, I just was reminded, like in his latter years, he was like, yeah, you know, humanity should go. It's enough.
Yeah.
It's been, like, and be like, I was like, George, people don't want to hear that. It's like, no,
Right.
but really, it's been enough. Just bring it on.
Right.
And
Yeah.
he meant it. That's what was so crazy. It was like,
Right.
yeah, people want to hear your jokes, man. They want to hear some of the classic bits. And it's
No,
like,
what he was doing is, you know, he was explaining and exposing governmental tyranny, you know, what they were doing to you for real, not a theory of conspiracy, for real. And people like, wait, tell a joke, man.
I feel like that classic Bill Hicks bit where he went when he had the cancer and was
All right.
just going like as dark as possible, and then he would tag it with, but don't worry, folks, there are dick jokes coming. Like after just like blasting people for like 10 minutes with all this,
Right.
like, here's how the government's screwing you, here's
Yeah.
how everything you're being bought and sold, everything's terrible, blah blah blah.
Right.
It's dick jokes coming. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
But
He should have used a laugh track like Jihad Jerry did.
the
I
laugh-
did one live stand-up. It was short.
Yeah.
It was in New York. I forget the name. It was at Pier 43 or something. There was a tugboat that had been turned into a nightclub that was docked there. Yeah.
That sounds crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. And they had, you know, they would have live performances and then they would have a DJ. And this was not that long after 9/11. And I took my white bathrobe from the Soho Grand and my Osama bin Laden mask
Oh man.
and my boombox with a laugh track that I had programmed on a CD so that after every one of the bad jokes,
You can just hit the laugh and you get the
yeah, and with the microphone, yeah. And it, you know, it lasted about 5 minutes before I was asked to go.
Were people just furious about it, or like,
Yeah. The first joke is, hello, I was in your beautiful, I was in your city of Chicago last week. What a beautiful skyline.
Yeah, that's a wow.
And like, these Western women, they are so immoral. They are drinking and they are flirting. And they come to me and they say, oh, Jihad, you look so good in that turban. And I said, I'd look better in you. And she said, let's go. Disgusting. It didn't go down well.
Very brave. Well, I mean, but then I remember there were all these discussions about, oh, is it okay to laugh again? Is it okay to, you know, do this or that?
Yeah.
Or whatever? And everyone like got super, super serious about it.
Right.
But also, I mean, not to put too fine a point on it, like, oh, that didn't come out of nowhere. That was for like decades and decades of like foreign entanglement and
Right.
and bombing other countries that, you know, didn't get the same play as the World Trade Centers. And
Right.
I'm not going to sit here and get like super political about it or anything. But, like, if you didn't see that coming, it was like, yeah, it was going to happen eventually. Have we talked?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's hard for me to believe that. Well, let's just put it this way. There's meat on the bone about a cover up with 9/11 to me.
Did you? I was just reminded when you had your wedding with the cakes.
Yeah.
That was, it was like, I remember it
was called the Twin Towers of Love.
It was deeply contentious with some folks.
Oh yeah. Yes.
Which I mean, gosh, you know, that Giuliani guy like turned it into like an art form of you know, performatively invoking 9/11. As in many others.
Yeah,
So,
well, yeah. If you're just shameless and duplicitous, no one has a problem with you.
Yeah. yeah, that's fine. That's okay. But you make a joke about it. Boo.
Oh no, that's no.
Okay, so then, not to get too far down the lines with the 9/11 humor, but like the whole concept of Jihad Jerry didn't super land. The songs were good though. The songs were interesting.
Well, yeah, I worked hard on those songs,
and I like that they've been re-released. And
yeah,
what was it like revisiting those? Because that was a time where it's pre something for everybody. There wasn't a lot of Devo activity in that.
There was I recorded all those in 2005, and didn't get a deal to put them out until like 6 months later in 2006. And I think most of them really hold up because I was working with really good musicians and spending lots of time in the studio. And my good friend Paul David Hagar, who's like front of house mixer for Beck and for Miley Cyrus and many others. He's also a great studio engineer, and he did all the recording and mixing, and we worked hard on it. That's all I can say. And I remember doing an interview at Sirius XM in New York because I was put out on Cordless Records, and Cordless was a little side project for Warner's,
right?
And the guy that started Cordless knew the people at Sirius, and they were very interested in interviewing me. And the first thing this DJ says is, "Hey, this lead-off track here, The Time Is Now. If that was a Devo song, I'd be playing the shit out of it." You go,
what do you mean,
yeah. Yeah. He goes, but Jihad Jerry? No fucking way.
Oh, thanks a pants load. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like, and I do think most of those songs, I still really enjoy them, and I was glad to re-release them and add new material. I even like I even like the Name Check song.
Oh yeah.
What's in a Name?
What's in a Name? Yeah, definitely, trying some big swings for different things. I do think, Time Is Now was great. Like there's that could be it, like the way of like doing the call and response, like, oh, but you never hear it that way. It was like, oh, that's really clever. That's a very like Devo thing to do it. Like, because it's usually you would have like, the question and answer, and
right.
And it's like question ambivalence, which is fantastic, and
there aren't any answers.
Yeah, absolutely. And like Beehive, that's a killer riff, that's a killer bluesy riff, but it doesn't sound like the blues. It sounds like a song that you would do.
It's where I started before,
right?
Before I met Mark, and then he influenced me to change the way I was writing music, and I influenced him about what we would write about, and what the idea of de-evolution was. That's why it was such a good marriage. But that's how I made that riff up when I was 21 on my Dan Electro guitar, and
which it totally sounds like, but I mean that as a compliment. Like,
yeah. and I thought of myself as you have a lot of ridiculous personas then, but I thought of myself as like a white John Lee Hooker or something, when I was doing that.
So did Clapton. Sorry, just had to get
He
that.
never did anything as dirty as that song.
John Clapton could never. I think that, but it's notable because it's like at the time it was like, oh no, it's like Devo energy, but like it's a little less. It doesn't have like the hard synth action being like at the forefront, right? Like
right.
And it's kind of, there's almost like big rock review stuff going on, but with the larger conceit.
Yes.
Whether people were into it, horrified by it, or not.
Yeah, I mean, it's twisted. It's Captain Beefheart got in there somewhere.
Yeah, and like look, Bowie, like he was flirting with fascistic imagery for a while, and seemed to get off scot free. But maybe it was those are different times too.
Yes, they were. Oh, I hate thinking about those times. Yeah.
Which. Yeah, I mean, we talked. I'm really trying not to repeat ourselves too much. I'm not going to worry too much about it. But like, I feel like that was Bowie's a perfect example of an artist that was like common cause for like pushing the envelope, for trying different things.
He's incredible, just incredible.
Yeah, and R.I.P. man. That's that's usually when there's a celebrity death, I'm like, whatever. But yeah, when Bowie hit, it's like, oh, this should be a national holiday.
Yeah, God, so much talent. I mean, he could sing, he could play, he could perform theatrically. He had plenty of ideas and worked with incredible people, kept reinventing himself. He did everything an artist should do. And what I really, really respect about him, even beyond everything else that's obvious, is that here he is in the end. He knows he's going to die. He knows he's got terminal illness. And what does he do? He goes out and writes a new record
about what's happening to him, which is amazing. Like, it's
fantastic.
Talk about how way to go out, right? I mean,
when I saw that video where he's almost wrapped up like a mummy and frightening, I thought, what the hell is this about, man? And then I find out 2 weeks later,
Yeah, and I was lucky enough to have Tony Visconti on, which was a dream. Obviously, that guy's done so much great stuff. But yeah, he like swore everyone they had NDAs. Like it was like he was like, you cannot tell anyone about any part of this.
Right.
And it's
that's
perfect.
That's an artist. That's a true artist.
I mean, it's hard to argue with like living a life of pure art that way and going out, choosing to go out like that. And it's kind of remarkable.
He never lost his nerve.
Yeah, exactly. He always, saw it through and always like saw where he wanted to go with it, which is great. I mean, it's some people have the ideas, but they lack the tenacity to enact them, and some people lack the bravery to do it.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, and they're like, they're like, as soon as they can get off the train, like as soon as they can go to some safe place, they do. They quit being experimental. They quit pushing the envelope. They quit taking risks. As soon as they
can.
Like
this? This is the thing you like? Cool. We'll just do this.
Yeah, we'll just, no problem.
Yeah, we can keep remaking this record. That's fine. How much are you gonna pay me? All right, that sounds okay.
Right.
Yeah, it's the dichotomy is huge. Like I liken it to when David Lynch came back with Twin Peaks: The Return, which is just incredible, uncomfortable.
Oh man,
like it's like just like pure distilled Lynch, and they just let him do it and let him go, and it's crazy and it's frustrating. And it also aired at the same time that the Game of Thrones season, where they ran out of source material, and they're like, all right, cocaine decisions, let's go. And it's just, oh my God, like the contrast. It was amazing.
If David had only been allowed to do one episode, and it was episode 8, Got a Light, it's like,
it's so great.
That's throwing the mic down. That's like, fuck you. Come on, everybody. Top that, pal. You can't.
And it's so it's so audacious and so perfectly him too, about how he chose to do it. Like, just to like resolve some things so succinctly and beautifully, and to leave something, no, we're not going to bother with that.
I was jealous and howling with laughter. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's truly remarkable. And that's, I mean, do you feel like there's like affinity and common cause when you see art like that? Like, is it, I mean, I know I always get like pumped when I'm like, wow, I can't believe, sorry to bother you, right? I can't.
Well, the first person we wanted to meet when we got out to LA was David Lynch.
Nice.
And I did.
How did that go?
It was fantastic. He made me meet him at Bob's Big Boy on La Cienega Boulevard, where he would go every day for lunch and have a chocolate milkshake and a hamburger.
Fantastic.
And, there was no joke to it.
He just liked it. I'm sure.
That's serious. And it was just fantastic. you're almost like you got fanboy stuff going on and
Right.
feel jittery because you're in the presence of something really intense and really cool and smart and kind of threatening. And it went well, and he handed me an early version of the script of early draft of Ronnie Rocket. Said, read this, because I think at the time he was even thinking that he might consider using Devo. It's a movie he never made, and it's a movie he ended up like nicking pieces of to put in other movies.
Yeah.
But man, Ronnie Rocket, that's the masterpiece that got away. Basically what it is if David Lynch had a surrealistic nightmare about the life of Elvis Presley, woke up and remembered it all, wrote it down, and now he's going to retell the story of Elvis Presley from his perspective. It's
perfect for you guys. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Are you kidding me? That's like central casting. Yeah, let's go.
Oh, it's incredible.
And he never
It's
made
like-
it. Yeah, I never made it, huh?
No, it's like these two disgraced plastic surgeons, because they've been experimenting and doing unethical things. They lose their license, and they I think they're gay, and they move into some like Gothic looking house. It's like basically Addams Family.
Right. Yeah.
And they create a basement laboratory and keep doing their work in secret. And for one reason or another, they end up at this high school dance. And there's a massive electrical problem. And the band on stage is just like a typical kind of like 60s surf band, the kind of thing that David always likes to traffic in. And this kid gets the whole place catches on fire, and this kid gets electrocuted. He's on the verge of death. They sneak him out and they take him back to their laboratory, and they save him. But he's in constant pain, and he's wearing devices under his clothes that keep him alive, with some solution with tubes going into his gut and down his back. And they play him rock music, and they play him Elvis Presley, and he's kind of their prisoner, and he learns how to play guitar, and he learns how to sing, and he goes back to school. And everybody makes fun of him because now he's this fucked up kid, right? But when he gets on stage, whenever he gets around electrical current, he goes into spasms and goes nuts and just starts screaming and singing. But the girls all think it's cool.
Right. This
But he's like dying.
Elvis of Elvis. But yeah, right. Like he's actually happy.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. And so,
wow,
it's so dark. And then that's when the good witch from Wizard of Oz comes into it, which he ended up nicking and putting in. What was it? With the Nicolas Cage movie?
Wild at Heart.
Yeah, Wild at Heart. I'll end up putting that in. But she figures centrally into this thing because she takes him away from these guys and saves him.
What year is this that this happened?
This he gave me that in 1978.
Okay, so that's pretty early on. He hadn't even done Elephant Man yet, right? Was that
no.
Had he been Racerhead at that point or no?
Yeah, Racerhead.
Racerhead 77, right? Yeah, so
77. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is and then my other studio upstairs, I've got a framed picture of Jack Nance from Eraserhead, which is great because it's like if you know, then people are like, oh my god, and people don't like, who's that guy?
I mean, the fact that he could do that, and he could do Elephant Man, and he could do Blue Velvet, all like in a cluster. It's like Stanley Kubrick, who would do this, then he'd do that. And then,
Barry Lyndon, 2001, The Shining, like it's all the same guy.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah, that would have been a heck of a collaboration.
Yeah.
So, I mean, not that Human Highway isn't fantastic, which obviously in its own way.
You know, that's the only film that got better the more they kept doing re-edits. You know, usually you start re-editing a film, it's just you're going down a rabbit hole. It's going to get worse and worse. But honest to God, the last time Neil did a brand new edit and re-released it, which was a few years ago now, and he invited me along with the cast to get up on stage and talk afterwards and answer questions. It was the best version. It was the most,
Right.
It made the most sense. It was the shortest and most cohesive, and it actually was enjoyable to watch.
Yeah, but did it just seem like an inscrutable, incomprehensible like work at first? Because it seems like it could have gone.
But he just kept changing his ideas as that, you know, he was making it up as he went. You know,
And there's a lot of ideas for sure. But
and he had the power and the money to, and people around him that were, you know,
no one's gonna tell him no. Yeah.
no, they weren't going to tell him no. That's right. They were sycophant enough, and of course Dean Stockwell and you know, come on, another great man that's dead, great actor that's dead, Dennis Hopper.
Yeah, thank you. I was gonna say I was thinking of. Here's what I was thinking of, Jerry. I was like, yeah, he was in Land of the Dead, and he basically played Donald Rumsfeld in that. And like Land of the Dead, all love to George Romero, not a great movie, but like that's what I was thinking of as the other movie of all the things he's done. Because I was like,
well, they were at their low point. You know, they had lost their polished stars, and they were like just drinking and coking and smoking, and they were like pranksters. Yeah. They were like hell on set, and they were, you know, they were really poking Devo, you know, they they were having fun with us. We felt like Jeffrey in Blue Velvet, basically.
Hey, neighbor.
because Dennis was already Frank in real life. I mean, that's what was going on.
Seems like he'd be an intimidating dude to hang out with.
Oh my God, yeah.
I do love the Worried Man.
Oh yeah,
like I think that's so. And it honestly, it took me years before I realized. I think it took me working at a record store before I realized that it was even like a cover / reinterpretation. I was like, oh, yeah. It's like an old school like working song.
Totally twisted, yeah, totally twisted.
Because I thought it sounded like you guys, and you know,
I love that we got to sing our version of that while playing Disgruntled Nuclear Waste Cleanup Crew
with the hats that have the apparatus.
Yeah. that was my design. I did that.
Yeah, I mean, again, great visual, and like again, you could kind of lift and shift that to today, right? And
right. And you think of Chernobyl, where you know, look who saved us, the liquidators, these guys that sacrificed themselves, because the whole damn thing was going to melt down through the foundation, and basically everybody in Russia and Ukraine would have died, and we would still be dealing with so much radiation you wouldn't believe it. So those people built dug underneath in tunnels, subject themselves to lethal radiation, and build a new concrete floor to contain the meltdown.
And it's a death sentence, you know,
and they knew it.
Yeah. Did you see that there was I think it was a miniseries. Was it a movie? I think it was a miniseries. It was a couple years back.
It was great.
And the only jarring thing about it is everybody had British accents, of course, because but yeah,
it was really well done.
I agree. I thought it was really fantastic, and it's for such a tale that that shouldn't be forgotten about. You know, like that is not a sacrifice that should ever be forgotten about.
Yeah.
Wild Change-Up. One thing I don't think we've actually talked about before. I mean, I don't. Where do I go from there? I mean,
I don't know. Everything's been so funny.
Exactly. Let's get back to the 9/11 humor and lighten things up.
Oh man.
Iggy. You stayed with him for a while, and
he hit his rented house in Malibu when he was finishing up Lust for Life,
and like. Yeah, I mean, he just liked having you around, is what it.
Yeah, I think so. He got off on the act. He saw us. He came and saw us at the Starwood with Tony Basil. She brought him,
Nice.
and he was impressed.
Yeah. Did you ever give serious contention to like collabing with Iggy, or was he just too much of a wild card?
You know, he was so scary, especially at that time, that I think as much as we really would have liked doing that, we couldn't imagine the reality of making that happen.
Yeah. Like it's yeah, it seems like he wasn't that far away from,
We never knew what was really going on. I mean,
yeah, I mean, how would you? It's just all you know is maybe keep a safe distance if possible.
it was right on the water, and it was, a typical kind of structure that was built in the 60s right on the water, almost like an ugly ranch house, but on stilts with the surf rolls in underneath and the whole house rumbles and everything's really loud. And at 6 o'clock when the tide came in, he decided after a whole afternoon of snorting and smoking and drinking that he'd show us how cool he was, I guess. And he got out on the balcony and up on the rail, and he jumped. When the surf came in, he just jumped off the railing into the surf. But it wasn't really deep enough. So he hit the wet sand, and he was all scratched up and bruised up. And then he cleaned up in the shower. And then he decided he had to go into town and meet his girlfriend, but he was taking so long to get it together. She showed up at the house.
She was waiting
she was angry, and he had rented a GTO convertible, like a muscle car.
Yeah.
From the 60s, and they were fighting and yelling, and they left together, and they got in, and they were going to go down PCH somewhere and have a burger. And
sure, why wouldn't you? Yeah.
About 15 minutes later, the police knocked on the door because they wanted to talk to us because Iggy had hit a phone pole, and the car was totaled, and the girl was taken to the Malibu hospital, and Iggy was there with her. And, there we are. Again, it's like Blue Velvet and Frank,
Right. Yeah. It seems like it would be kind of like an unsettling experience to be around that. Did you find that it was, could you kind of shut that out and like, just like, okay, let's work on this now.
I think we made some, business type excuses about why we had to leave.
Yeah.
When Iggy came back.
Did he ever jump on Mike or anything along those lines when you were?
No, I wish.
Yeah, that could have gone two ways, and either way would have been interesting.
Yeah.
Like it would have been memorable, that's for sure.
And he's still here. He's still on the planet, and he's still doing it.
I did not have it on my bingo card that he would outlive Bowie.
It's unbelievable.
Good for him, man. Good for him.
I love that song you did with the teddy bears about 10 years ago.
Did you hear the record he did at Rancho de la Luna with Josh from Queens of Stone Age years ago? Really good. Like
cool.
Better than has any right to be. Where it's like this is fantastic, and you just made this to make it. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I think that it's notable, created under adverse conditions. You're coming up from Ohio, which we may have decided we had a tour game. We were trying to figure out what the worst state was, and Ohio is definitely top 3.
It's best state to get out of.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's great. What I always said is, growing up in the Central Valley, it was a great place to be from because it gives you plenty to rebel against. So that's what makes it good.
Yeah, if you're an artist, you got to get out of there.
Right, exactly.
But it's boot camp, and it makes you strong.
Exactly. You find out how much you actually want it.
You do,
and what it means to you, like very early on.
Yeah, you can't be a wimp.
Did you feel like, and I'm just thinking about the fact like Devo just being an idea factory, like the beginning was the end. Like when you put that on the truth about devolution, like it started with the film, right? And like it's there from the jump that you got like There's like the narrative structure. There's like,
Right.
what are we watching? What is this? What's
Right.
happening?
The manifesto, like the meta statement.
Right, it's just like out of the gate. Like
Mhm.
it's all fully conceived in there.
Here it is, folks. Yeah.
Did you ever find the and chat? I agree. Indiana was in the mix as well, but a lot of people, by the way, chiming in about the chimes and saying it's disturbing their ASMR experience, which I think is deeply hilarious. Which I will probably be disturbing as well by speaking. But being an idea factory, that can be a double-edged sword. Sometimes there's too many ideas. Sometimes there's you have to whittle it down. I feel like everyone was the best at sort of listening to their own North Stars about what to do and how to create. Can you think of any examples of just like go nowhere stuff that kind of spring to mind? Like whether it's like from, the bouillabaisse ideas of everyone, or people just trying to like have a say or something along those lines, or stuff that didn't work.
Oh, plenty. That's anybody would be being dishonest if they said every idea they had was good. You got to have some stinkers.
Do you have any especially egregious ones, especially smelly ones?
Well, I think on the Shout LP, a lot of things went wrong, and we did a whole 8 hours of a photo shoot with Warner Brothers select photographer. We shot, on the roof of Warner Brothers. We went to several locations in LA in our peace Nazi uniforms.
I forgot about that.
with replicas of 9mm pistols that we got from Western Costume. It's kind of like
84, right? That was like
it's kind of a Jihad Jerry moment. It didn't work, and we had wigs on that looked a lot like the Ramones on purpose.
And that was a record that's got the Fairlight, right?
Yeah, that was a bad idea.
And especially, I mean, I think Oh No It's Devo is fantastic. I think it's actually wild.
Yeah, I like that album a lot.
But it definitely did seem like a weird step. Like it seemed a little, as a fan, almost kind of undercooked a little bit, maybe.
Well, it's a problem. What you said at the beginning of this tonight, where about Devo had some kind of primal rock foundation, and then there would be synths supporting it on top of it, and commenting on it, but it wasn't synths deciding what we do, or getting rid of guitars and getting rid of power and guts and primal energy. By the time you get a Fairlight, what you got is the tail wagging the dog,
right? Where
everything that makes Devo, dangerous or primal gets put to bed, and the fruity tooty Fairlight takes over, and it's terrible.
It did sound a lot safer. Maybe
it was nubby and
and
it was like tedious and small and busy. It was basically when Puff Daddy became P. Diddy.
I forgot about that rebrand.
Yeah. It's like, see this? I'm Puff Daddy. See this Wong here? No, I'm P. Diddy. I lost my balls.
That's another example of, was there no one around to tell him no? That was like, that's a bad idea. You shouldn't do that.
That's not a good arc from Puff to P. Diddy.
It doesn't have the same impact.
Yes.
And you had the So what were they? They were like they were from China or something, right? Like the suits. They were like kind of like I'm trying to remember. I don't have the visual in front of me, but I remember.
Well, there were two. We had two different kinds of suits. Yeah, the white friendship suits,
right?
That were Mao inspired. That were actually made by an English tailor on La Cienega Boulevard for us, and then we had the black peace Nazi outfits
Right.
that were made by this Japanese designer Koshin Sato, who tried to make it in America in like 1987, had big show at the Tunnel in New York that I produced. You know, I designed for 2 shows, afternoon show and a night show. And the big deal was that he made special outfits for Andy Warhol and for Miles Davis, and they would be at each show and modeled it. And the first show kind of went off as planned, but Andy got so sick by the second show that he refused to do it, and we had to call medics. He was in the dressing room and he wanted to go home, and his handlers refused to let him go out on the runway. And he looked bad, and you know, we talked to him briefly, and it didn't look like an act. And it wasn't, because next day he goes into the hospital, has a gallbladder operation, and dies.
Yeah, that's horrible.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah. Well, there is another joke. Okay.
I was gonna say, where's the laugh track?
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all the laughs I had for that stand-up were, you know, from Foley libraries of like comedy clubs in the 60s. So the laughter is a lot
like
more.
Bob Newhart with the button-down mind or something. Yeah.
Yeah, and the laughter is so kind of like polite and tee-hee-hee, you know.
Yeah. That's even better, right?
Yeah.
I think that so you bringing that up is an important note, because I think the collaborations over the years with designers and people with a strong visual aesthetic and stuff, it seemed to be very natural for you to be able to find your people from the outside, but it also seemed like it was very methodical and
Yeah, because you can't possibly, when you have these kind of ideas, it's such a farce to try to make people believe that it's just you're the auteur and you can do it all. You can't do it all. It takes really collaborative, talented people to help you realize a vision.
it's
It really
exhausting.
does.
Even if you can do it, it's exhausting. Like, who has that kind of time and energy?
Yeah.
And then, you know, like to think of like and again, as a cultural moment with Whippet and whatnot, like the visual aesthetic is half the reason that like people were like, what the hell is this?
Right.
But I always appreciate that, rather than just like, settle into the thing. Oh, we're the guys that with the hats that do this. Like, every album is different. You know, every album is like there's a different new, like, what are they doing now? What is it?
Right.
Like the plastic pompadours.
Plastic hair, yeah.
Which is so incredible. But it's also, you know, I think of another band that had like a strong visual aesthetic, like the Residents, right? Like they would do other things, be like, bring back the eyeballs. We want the eyeballs.
Yeah. It's hard to top the all-knowing eye. You know?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably one of the best visual aesthetics of all time. There's worse things to be known for. But did you, you know, as Devo through the ages, and again, up to the hats coming back, but being blue because their focus group tested, did you find that like people were like mad about like, you know, you changing the visual aesthetic while changing the music, or like were people at the time mostly like along for the ride?
No, you know, I think mostly the gatekeepers were the ones that got upset because, as you mentioned earlier, what they wanted you to do is just keep making Whippet.
Yeah.
Like, don't fuck around, Devo.
Give us 10 more of those. Thanks.
Make Whippet.
Yeah, we like that one. That's the one we like. Keep doing more of that.
Yeah. It was like all the interstitial videos that I would do to play in concert, where we had the evil record company executive, Rod Reuter. And
that's right.
every line he said, I just got from real people in the business. I listened to what they'd say, and I'd be so horrified, I'd go home and write it down. I didn't make up anything. When he says, I can forgive you guys for being artists, but I can't forgive you for being stupid. You're begging for the barrel room. Anyway, that was real. That was all. They really said that.
But then, like, also anyone that was paying slice with attention, which the gatekeepers usually are not, unless it directly affects them. I just think about the fact that in Duty Now you start with the corporate anthem and go straight into Clock Out, right?
Yeah.
It's like, which are both great, but
Mhm.
first of all, we covered this previously when you've been on. Weird sounding record, like just like I love it, but very strange sounding record.
Yeah.
And yeah, not going for the jugular in a very different sort of way than maybe the expectations were. And that's when you started to bring in those ideas of like, yeah, like this is like the which is why it's so funny, when even before Kim Jong-un, like Kim Jong-il, they would have like their anthems, that they would play, and it was like, here's the pump up music to hear the great leader, right? Great, okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, we had all that worked out. By the time we came up on the radar, we had been in garages and basements for 3.5 years, and we had like 40 songs, and we had culled them down to about 20 or so of our favorites, and we had divided them up. Here will be the first record, here will be the second record, and here's why. So it was all worked out, and they didn't like our sophomore effort. They did not like Duty Now. They said basically, I know we got a 5-album deal with you guys, but let me just tell you something. The next record, the third record, if it's anything like this one, it'll be your last. And you can sue us. You can sue us for breach of contract. Go ahead and try. We got deep pockets, and we got a team of lawyers here. So when we did Freedom of Choice, our attitude was, okay, it's over. Fuck it. We're just going to do what we've been thinking, because we were always thinking about where we were going after we,
after the party was over,
divested ourselves of these songs we lived with, right?
Yeah.
And it was always going to be this quote robot R&B, where I was going to play synth bass instead of synth guitar because of Stevie Wonder's.
What's
the song?
So good.
Anyway. And then we got Stevie Wonder's producer, Bob Margolin,
right,
to make sure that the bass and drums were pumping and dry, and he did it.
Well, and it's funny that was the record that sort of you kind of threw caution to the wind on, because I mean, starting out on Freedom of Choice, starting off with "The Girl You Want," like that's an all-timer rock and roll song. I mean, the fact that like rock bands have covered it, maybe like being a little more straightforward or whatever, and Freedom of Choice is one of the great Devo anthem songs. And then you start off like side B even has like Gates of Steel. Gates of Steel is like, that would be some band's like best song ever, right?
Yeah. We were really disappointed and kind of crestfallen that the Freedom of Choice and Gates of Steel didn't get radio play.
It seems like a no-brainer, honestly.
Nobody jumped on it, but they did like the stuff that was where we were influenced by R&B, where it was R&B inflected, and where the arrangements were very strong and very to the point. You would remember the riff, and then you would count how many times we would repeat something before we change where you don't expect it, and they'd get used to that, and those are the songs they loved. That's why they loved Whip It, because that's the strangest chorus you're going to hear.
Oh, it doesn't make any sense from a perspective of like traditional songwriting. Like it's crazy. No. It's crazy. Like, and it's the movement in it is like that shouldn't work. None of it should work.
That's right. That's right.
I do want to. I am actually a big Duty Now future fan, and I was listening to one of those live records that were released back in the day. Which, by the way, rip. Like, it's great to actually hear that stuff for folks that were maybe too young to be there. It's great to hear you guys just tearing through stuff, like with a vengeance. But it occurs to me just what a singular composition Smart Patrol / Mr. DNA is.
Yeah.
How long did it take to come up with Smart Patrol? How did you work that out? And when did you know that that popped the way that it pops? Because I feel like that's got like the Jocko Homo thing, Right. It's got a thing like you do in a couple other songs, but it's all in one song, and it's epic in length as well.
Yeah. Well, I wrote that song on my bass, but I wrote it with Bob Mothersbaugh playing guitar, so we worked together on it. And then that Smart Patrol was just its own song. Then Mark started something that became Mr. DNA.
Right.
And we worked on the lyrics together, and the progression was one of those, progressions that don't rest.
Right.
So it's a revolving progression, and it was a call and response. And when we started playing live, we decided one night that we would do Mr. DNA right after Smart Patrol.
Right. Like we'll just 1-2 it. We'll just right into it. Yeah.
And even though it was really rough the first time, it was like, oh, we had to do that on purpose.
Right.
We really have to do that on purpose. So we worked on that, and we realized they were of a piece, that there was a medley here, and that it was together an epic thing, because it kicks into high gear. It's like just when you think you've had it and you think it's over and you're released from the rock of Smart Patrol, it's like, nope. Oh, seventh gear.
Right. Yeah. You're like, it's like you've been ascending. Then you hit a plateau, and it's like, oh, there's another mountain over here. Okay.
Yeah.
Like that's crazy. Well, and it's because that's one of those songs that it's indelibly two songs, but at the same time, it's hard to think of them as being separated.
That's right. We can't think of it as separate anymore. So,
well, and it's a small thing that I love that I didn't notice for years is the way the vocals in Smart Patrol trade off, like how people sing the different. Different parts. There's almost like a
that was always part of the idea when I was writing it.
Did you, I mean, from a perspective of just knowing who does what where, did that take a while to get, or was that kind of like something?
Well, we'd already started developing this, we weren't the meta Devo yet, where it's the Five Musketeers and the whole is bigger than the sum of its parts. We were, Bob was Clown, because he was a dangerous guy that a lot of people in Akron were afraid of, and they called him Clown. And the drummer was Jungle Jim, and Mark would always put on the Boogie Boy mask, so he was Boogie Boy, and I was Chinaman, and a racist trope that I didn't know was racist. It was an homage, and so when I was writing, each of us had character voices anyway. We weren't like leading men. We didn't sing like Bowie, and so part of the appeal was the character, like talk, singing, and it was a character, like in a theatrical play. So that's when I was writing it, thinking, okay, and then Mark's character sings this verse, and Bob sings that verse, and then we all sing the chorus,
And so everyone gets their sort of their soliloquy within the song, if it was,
and it works great because it works great because the group gets to show its talents, and
well, and it's something where and again, there's another example of a song with a lot of repetition. There's a lot of repetition to it, but it repeats in different ways, which is to say that like musically it stays mostly static, but like things change within it as it goes, which makes it kind of like, oh, that's interesting, that's cool.
And that epic lead was written.
I was about to give props for one of my favorite guitar solos.
Mark and I worked with Bob until there was nothing jammy about it. It was written.
No, it's just like it's right there, and that's I may have actually put that in a thing when I talked about great guitar solos like years back, now that I think about it, a zine or something, because it's ain't nothing like it. But it's for a song that keeps building and building and building, like to have that, it's like,
Well, all my favorite guitar solos were always ones that structurally build. Like, in other words, when you hear the next note, you go, that was the right choice.
Right, yeah. It just seems you can't imagine not hearing that as like the next thing.
That's it. It isn't like he suddenly goes, I don't know what I'm doing. Meow, you don't want that.
I'll just do a hammer on, okay.
Right. No, that is a smart lead for the Smart Patrol.
Yeah, and I think that's, I mean, to me, that's like a perfectly conceived song for like distill. Like if I was to like elevator pitch, like play me a song that's Devo. It's like that would be one of the ones that I play. Like if you like this, then you're gonna dig everything else, even though it doesn't sound like this necessarily. It's like
I don't mean to interrupt, Mr. Conan Neutron, but because I am a new father, I have to go.
You have duties. Okay, so I wanted, so real quick,
Yeah.
over the years you've had a lot of identities, a lot of
alter egos. Yeah.
alter egos, but we like in that way, I suppose. How has that fit the music, the art, the ideas happening at the time, and what does it mean to you for these different ones, and what do you get out of them?
I guess it's like the same reason Mark and I like masks ever since from the beginning. We both collected masks. It's a theatrical device that takes you out of yourself, makes you a character bigger than your mortal self, that then frees you up from certain kind of limitations and certain kind of assumptions about what. So you get more creative, you get more abstract.
It takes the pressure off a little bit since you're
right. It's like, that's not me. That's him.
Right. It's not Jihad Jerry that's going down to the post office, because that would
right. But as you find out in The Invisible Man, you him.
Right. Right. Well, and I think there's a larger discussion here about like things.
Jungian one, yes.
Right. I mean, what does it mean to like put on the mask and become someone else, and so on and so on.
It goes back to The Prisoner. Remember The Prisoner TV show?
One of my all-time favorites.
Yeah.
That makes me want to just sign off with "See you later," but I'm not going to do it. So last thing, and it's always so great having you, man. Like this is thank you for doing it.
I love talking to you.
I think this is a real cool release. The Invisible Man. It's people can get what's the best way? Should people be getting it? I mean, I guess if they go to their local record store, if you have one.
Yeah, and to get a taste of it, just go to GeraldVCasale.com and watch the video,
which are great. The videos
which is cut to the Martin Ware remix, Martin from Heaven 17.
Which is fantastic. I guess give me a like elevator reading of how that came to pass. I mean,
well, we met Heaven 17 in 1981, and we hung out with him in LA, and Martin and I became friends, and I loved what he was doing. And he's a great guy and a smart guy, a very nice guy. And we stayed in touch over the years. And like in the late 80s, I would go see him. He was, at a high point, financially. He had a condo on the island of Giudecca within Venice, Italy.
Right.
Yes. So you'd get on a boat from the Grand Canal and you'd go out to Giudecca and there he'd hang out.
Sounds right.
And then, I saw him, here and there. The last time I had seen him before he played San Francisco this year was they showed up at some weird festival in Long Beach about 7 years ago or something. It didn't make sense. It was
Wouldn't be the first place I would think of for them. No,
they were not happy either. But this time around, the show is really cool and they were great. And I played him what I was doing because he asked me what I was doing. And I said, hey, would you consider doing something? Like, does this make you want to do anything? He goes,
yeah,
I would love it.
Awesome.
I go, I don't know if I can afford you. And he goes, don't worry about that. Let me do it. And a week later, boom.
There it is.
There it is.
And it sounds like what you think it's going to start like, but I mean, it's like you're like, oh, what do you think it's going to sound like? That's what it is. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, I could keep talking forever. I need to let you go. The documentary status.
Yes.
From last time.
Yeah, I think there's been some kind of movement from that ugly stasis. I think it's going to happen. I think there's a documentary that's going to happen. Yes.
That's wonderful news for all the devotees out there.
Yeah.
Jerry, thanks so much, man.
Thank you, man.
It's always a pleasure, and congratulations on the both the new release and the other new release.
Yeah, I have to go burp the baby.
Right, I was gonna say you got to burp one of them. That's not the record.
No.
Jerry Casale, thank you so much, man. Appreciate
Bye-bye.
you. Oh, there he goes. Jerry Casale. What an awesome dude. Love to hear what that guy's up to. If you are tuning into the show and you have not heard the previous episodes, I would strongly urge you to go and find them, because there's even more Devo content. You know what I mean. Let's hear the new EP, The Invisible Man. Let's hear the title. And thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. This is The Invisible Man.
Invisible man, clicking, he says, here I am. You don't see nothing when he pinch your ass. You try to run until you out of gas. Lick 2 times and he'll appear. Lick 2 more and he's out of here. Now hit him in the head and twist his neck. Throw him in the ditch and drag him around. Hit him in the head and twist his neck. Throw him in the ditch and drag him around. Hit him in the head and twist his neck. The invisible man got to go down. The invisible man got to go down. The invisible man is an evil clown. He's in your face and he's always around. When he pinch you, grab on tight, take him down and make him fight. Lick 2 times and he'll appear. Click 2 more and he's out of here. Now hit him in the head and twist his neck. Throw him in the ditch and drag him around. Hit him in the head and twist his neck. Throw him in the ditch and drag him around. Hit him in the head and twist his neck. The invisible man's got to go down. The invisible man's got to go down. Now tell him like it is. Show him what it's for. The invisible man is coming back for more. The invisible man got to go down. He say. The invisible man got to go down. He say. The invisible man got to go down. He say. The invisible man got to go down. He say. You hear, you hear, you hear, you hear, you hear, you hear. A bullet for your war of attrition and your exploitation of the human condition. A duplicitous man on a curious mission, waiting for the other shoe to drop. I'm gonna pay you back. I'm gonna pay you back. I'm gonna pay you back right now. What you're selling, I ain't buying. Your lips are moving, that means you're lying. You appropriated credit, you let them think you said it. I gotta give you credit, that hat trick is impressive. Take all the fame and glory, deflect the blame, rewrite the story. I'm gonna pay you back, I'm gonna pay you back, I'm gonna pay you back right now. 100, 200, 300, 400. make 7. I'm gonna pay you back. I'm gonna pay you back. I'm gonna pay you back right now.
Don't be gaslighting me, mofo. Don't be gaslighting me, mofo. Don't be gaslighting me, mofo. Don't be gaslighting me, mofo.
We survived the wind and waves, cheated death and made it safe. Rode the lifeboat to the shore, that's when you wanted more. I gotta give you credit, the hat trick is impressive. Take all the fame and glory, deflect the blame, rewrite the story. I'm gonna pay you back. I'm gonna pay you back. I'm gonna pay you back right now. 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, and this bullet makes 7. Go!
I'm gonna pay you back. Jerry Casale. Before that, The Invisible Man. Those are both on the new EP. Some cool stuff. There's some remixes, easy listening. Heaven 17 stuff. Anyway. Here's some Smart Patrol.
He's been with the world. I'm tired of the soup du jour. He's been with the world. Wanna end this prophylactic tour. Afraid that no one around me understands my potato. Think I'm only a smart boy looking for a real tomato. He's been with the world. I'm tired of the soup du jour. He's been with the world. I wanna win this prophylactic tour. Afraid nobody around here understands my potato. I think I'm only a spot boy looking for a real tomato. He's been with the world. And I'm tired of the soup du jour. He's been with the world. I wanna end this prophylactic tour. Afraid nobody around here comprehends my potato. Guess I'm just a spot boy looking for that
Spot Patrol, Mr. DNA. God damn, what a great song that is. I mean, for a band that has like just great song after great song, there's something about that just, it sends me, baby. It sends me. Of course, before that, we had I'm Gonna Pay You Back. Can you hear me now? And The Invisible Man. Both on the Invisible Man EP that you can get. It's on 12-inch vinyl. It's beautiful. It's freaking awesome looking, man. The original version of I'm Gonna Pay You Back is as a single, but it's that EP's got it's like a lounge version. There's like an easy listening version. It's a pretty cool release, and if you're remotely interested in Jerry Casale, I would highly suggest checking it out. It's a good one. I'm gonna pick up a copy myself when I get around to it. Clear vinyl, beautiful artwork. Anyway, yeah, check out the new videos. New video for Invisible Man. I'm gonna pay you back too. They're great. It's really good. You can find all that stuff at his website, which is GeraldVCasale.com. So find that there. Link, you can get shirts, all that kind of stuff. I should make something. Anyway, name of the show is Conan Protonic Reversal. Thank you very much for listening to it. The show airs on Radio Nope Thursdays, 8 Eastern, 7 Central, 6 Mountain, 5 Pacific. I'm back, baby. No more touring for the year. You can find all the archives for free. Always. No ads, no sponsors, no kidding. ProtonicReversal.com. But if you like the show and great episodes like this and you want to support it, and or you want to give me money, $1 a month, patreon.com/ProtonicReversal. Oh, it'll get you episodes sooner. That's I'm off my game. Sorry, guys. Thanks for people sharing shows around, everything. Appreciate you. Great stuff to come. Duty now for the future. Check you later.
Can you hear me now? 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 See you on the radio. And that snare drum and that drum roll means we've got a winner. If you're the fifth caller, or any caller at all, welcome to my top 10. I'd like to thank our sponsor. But we haven't got a sponsor. Not if you were the last man on earth. She was prepared to prove it. This one goes out to a special girl. There is no special girl. It's the end of radio. The last announcer plays the last record. The last what? Leaves the transmitter. Circles the
globe in search of a listener. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Is it really broadcasting if there's no one there to receive? It's the end of radio. As we come to the close of our broadcast day, got my radio on. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? This is a test! If this had been a real emergency, hey, hey!